there was a player whose word knowledge might rival Dave's, it would be Geoff. Geoff knows a lot of words. Doesn't seem like he has much of a cap on, does he know 9-letter words, 10-letter words, 11-letter words? Yes, he knows them all. So these are two guys with prodigious word knowledge, and it should be fun. Hey, list team, nice to see you. Good morning. So, all right, looks like the players are getting started. And Dave with a pretty good rack to start, I would say. I'm guessing that within a few seconds, Dave is going to figure out which bingo he should play here among several. When you have a rack like this, that's really good with a blank in it. The first thing that Dave is thinking about is, how can I make sure that I turn the blank into a letter that's already on my rack, right? You don't want to give your opponent an extra letter to potentially bingo through. So if he's able to turn his blank into a P, I, D, E, or S, he may opt to do that. Of course, you also have to worry about placing your vowels next to bonus squares, and it may be that he's just going to go ahead and play something like patties or putties or potties. The interesting thing about those options, if he's going to play a word with that construction, P blank D D I E S, some of those will take a T hook and others will not. So we'll have to get word on what vowel he's choosing to be the blank, because that does matter a little bit here, given that Geoff has a T and he might be tempted to T hook this word. If it was putties, he could play puttiest. If it was potties, he could play pottiest. But if Dave designated that blank an A, you would not be able to T hook at the end there. So hopefully we can, okay, blank is an A. So that's interesting. Interesting choice for Dave there. He chooses the A, which is a little bit better of a bingo tile than the O or U. So every so often, Geoff might have a bingo through that A that he wouldn't have through some of the other tiles. Probably a little bit more likely to bingo through an A. But Dave is doing this deliberately to prevent a T hook from going down. He's chosen the A because it is his only option that does not allow a T to go at the end there. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Geoff, now, can we, while the game is still young, can we refresh the names? I think, if I'm not mistaken, the scores are reversed. It's still early on, so maybe it would be easy to reverse that and just get the correct order while we have just one play on the board. So over to Geoff now. He's got a Q and an X. The Q is going to be tough to manage here. I don't really see a great play with that Q, whereas there are a bunch of pretty good plays with the X. And he just plays Ox underneath there for 36 points. I think so. Geoff is correctly realizing that the X is the tile to use there, but actually, I think he would have benefited from playing Oxy here on top of Patties. Ironically, not putting the X on a bonus square, but putting the Y above the E of Patties. And the reason I like that play a little bit better, first of all, it scores a few more points. And secondly, you need to give yourself as many chances to get help for your Q as possible. So by only playing 2 tiles instead of 3, Geoff didn't maximize his chances there of getting an I or a U that would really help him deploy that Q a little bit better. Obviously, Ox, not a huge blunder that you're going to slap your head necessarily when you see. But I think that's a slight improvement that he could have made there. So Dave, not the best post bingo draw. He's going to play Vow. Making Vex with that nice bonus spot for the V. That makes a lot of sense. it does give back a nice scoring spot on top of the OS spot, the S of Patty's and the O of Val. It's not that easy to score in that spot, though, I guess. I'm just looking. Well, maybe I'm biased a little bit by Geoff's rack, which doesn't work very well with that spot. So, yeah, Frosty. Frosty looks like a really nice option here, making some underlaps with the vexed hook. Even Frosty with vows is probably better than almost anything else here, but Frosty with the vexed hook looks really good. We'll see. Geoff has that spelled out on the rack. Seems pretty likely that he's going to play Frosty somewhere. I definitely, I think that's definitely the right direction here. Rather than worry about the Q, you're drawing 6 tiles, trying to pick up a U or an I or some other good stuff, AI for caddy or something like that. Although Frosty would block that. But so Dave with the early lead, but you can see Dave awaiting his next move has one of those racks that we all hate in Scrabble. It's really not very close to bingoing. It's also no chance of scoring very well. So Dave is very good at wringing as many points as possible out of racks like this. We're going to see what he can do with it. So Geoff does play Frosty. That looks like absolutely correct choice on his part. And back to Dave, and I have to imagine he's going to play something like Roue under the F of Frosty, maybe. I mean, his options are going to be quite constrained just by the fact that he has 2 sets of duplicate vowels and all 1-point tiles. So he's not terribly likely to score very well. I guess, oh man. Okay, so this is kind of funny. So Geoff doesn't really get a ton of help for his cue, but he does draw another 6-letter word. So Geoff just played Frosty, and now he has Carew, which you could see that going down on top of Vow, putting the K onto OS for Kos. I guess the only question is, will he play if that spot stays open, which I strongly suspect it will. I think Dave, you can see he has Roue lined up on his rack. I'm expecting Dave to play that under the F of Frosty, just because that's really the only spot that gives him any kind of scoring ability at all. So when that does occur, Geoff will have to make the choice of whether he wants to play Carew as a 6-letter word, putting a letter in the triple lane, or just Carew with 1 R. He also has Coraro lined up on his rack, which I believe that is good. I think there's 3, and I think there's multiple anagrams. Oh, wait, no, that sounds, I think it's Carew and Caroro, not Coraro. Hold on. Let me just look at this. Okay, so Roue goes down. Okay, so there are 3 6-letter words. If you take the Q and set it aside on Geoff's rack, there are actually 3 6-letter words in those 6 letters of Koraro, but none of them are that. The 3 words are Carew, Corora, and Caroro. So I think Geoff could be excused for mixing some of these options up, but unless he goes back to one of his original choices. Okay, all right. So he plays much shorter. He just plays Cora, which is much safer. Again, though, in this situation, I do think that every successive tile that Geoff is able to play to give him hope that his cue will be more playable, I think he should have that instinct to play longer here. Also, if he's going to play Cora, I wonder why not Coro, Koro, The reason for that is that QA is a little bit better to keep as a leave just because you can draw into a couple more possibilities to play your Q holding an A than an O. But again, that the instinct to play in that spot for Geoff is spot on. He gets 40 points there, and the game score is still pretty close. Even though Dave bingoed first, Geoff has been scoring quite well. Frosty scored almost 40. Cora scored 40. Ox was Geoff's. Val was Dave's play. Anyway, back over to Dave. He left, I think on his previous play, he left something like OEN, I believe. And he's drawn a B. And for sure, he's going to be looking for wherever he can score decently with that B, and also not. Okay, so there you, well, very self-descriptive play. He plays B, scoring with his B for a pretty nice score. And Geoff's Q problems are really not resolving. I wouldn't say that Geoff has really deserved to be saddled with this Q for quite so long. At this point now, it's starting to get closer to, there are no obvious good scoring spots on the board, certainly with these letters. And now it's starting to feel like maybe this is exchange time for Geoff, just because. Okay, so the computer's saying maybe a couple of plays, but at the very least, my instinct that these options are starting to get close to exchanging, I think that is borne out there. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the choices there that you saw would be playing Brule or Cruel through the O of Roue, or just dumping the Q now. I think those plays are really close. It's however you. I'm maybe against Dave Wiegand. Okay, so Geoff is going to be patient here, very patient, and he's going to play Cruel. I think it makes sense if you're going to pick which of these two plays between the C and the B. Geoff has made a really clever choice here, because if Geoff draws an I, he'll have Kibla to the A of Patties. So keeping QLB is very, very clever. Let's see if he draws an I that will vindicate his choice. No I. But that was definitely, he's drawn a Z, which normally you're happy to see, but not while you're trying to shed the Q. So that was a very clever play by Geoff. Just a nice little nuance. You probably say to yourself, well, the B would normally be a letter I'd like to play over the C. But in this case, Geoff with a very nice idea. Playing Cruel instead, trying to get an I, doesn't draw it. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a really good idea on his part. Really high level stuff. All right, back over to Dave. Oh, Olefin. Okay, so I was wondering if Dave had any good play overlapping along column N, making overlaps. And there you see on the Quackle, there it is. So Dave has this word lined up. I think the only thing he's thinking about from his perspective is the fact that playing Olefin there for 40 odd points, it looks great from a scoring perspective, but man, is it volatile. And the reason for that is not only are you giving up the upper right hand triple to really high scoring overlaps, you also give up the Olefin hook. Olefin takes an E hook. And there are any number of plays that Dave could get hit super hard by. So let's see what Dave does. And there it is. This is classic Dave Wiegand. He is not concerned about the volatility of this spot for a couple reasons. One, at least if you're going to make an opening like this that creates volatility, he's created multiple locations such that if he draws even decently, he'll have at least one triple available to him. Certainly, if all he needs is an E here, and he's very likely to have something good. And there are some of the I's. Oh boy, that's Well, maybe there are possibly some longer words with those letters for Dave, but that's not the set of letters that he was hoping for. So oddly, Geoff really doesn't have any plays that capitalize on the two new spots that were just created. So the two spots that Olefin created are the parallel play alongside OLE, and then the E hook at the end for Olefin. So it looks like Geoff is getting ready to play Blazer to the ER of Karai. And that will continue to leave both of those two big spots open. And really, if Geoff is able to sort of draw a little bit better than Dave, he might be able to seize control of the game here. Oh, very good. Okay, so Geoff, with a very clever idea of tacking the S on to this play. I love this. This is so the last two plays by Geoff are really, really impressive. The reason that he's tacked on the S, first of all, you get a boatload more points. I think you get something like 10 more points, 12 more points. And you give, again, I keep saying, you give yourself more of a chance to get some help for that Q. And wow, okay, so now Geoff has something here. I don't think it's very unlikely. Well, obviously, we know Dave doesn't have an E to put out in space to allow Geoff to play quavered. Blocks the E of Olefin. That's true. It blocks that quite well. That's a great point too. So leaving just that spot in the upper corner as a threat. So good point. Not only you get a bunch more points, get some help for your Q, you block that scary Olefin spot, you block off the double letter score that would make that spot really sting. So all very good reasons for Geoff to burn his S there. We normally don't love burning the S. It makes a ton of sense there. So Dave now with 3 sets of duplicated letters. I am going to guess that he's going to try to play something like Tian in the upper right corner, and that's okay. You can see now he has those letters lined up, Tian. He has pretty much no other way of scoring anything on this board. So this makes sense. He's managed in the process to undouble all 3 of his duplicated tiles. This looks clearly correct for Dave. So pretty high level play for these guys. No surprise on my end that these guys would be showcasing really good Scrabble play. So Geoff with that QU combination here, it's not clear to me that he has a great way of using that. I guess if he wanted to, maybe he's considering playing just Qua on top of Patty's. That seems okay. You give back the Aqua hook, but that's not terrifically dangerous in that spot. Oh, adverb. Oh, man. Adverb leaving QU. Yeah, there's a few. Okay, so if Geoff, this is like a record. It's not a record, but this is a long time. So just to recap, Geoff Thevenot drew the Q on his opening rack. This is a long, long time to deal with the Q. And frankly, I think he's played it more or less. I mean, the only change I would have made is instead of Ox, I might have played Oxy, which is not a huge difference. And instead of Cora, I might have opted to play another tile or a different tile. These are really, really small changes. So Geoff, with the Q on his rack to start the game, is here on his 6th turn. And that Q is still there. But if he's willing to continue to be patient, he can definitely play something like Adverb to the B of Blazers, as you saw a moment ago. He can play Dev and the Olefin hook, leaving QUAR, which is a pretty nice balanced combination of letters with the Q. I think I do like Adverb here. And the reason for that is just that Geoff is still kind of trailing on the scoreboard. He's just a step behind. And I like the idea of playing adverb because it creates a nice sevens lane that long term he might appreciate having opened while he has the opportunity to do so. Also with adverb, you score a few more points than a couple of the other plays, and you draw a few more tiles, try to get that second blank. So this is tricky. He's sitting back, he's thinking about how he's probably regretting this albatross of a cue. This is a great lesson in what the cue can do to high level players, right? Like Geoff knows so many bingos. He hasn't bingoed yet in this game because the cue has basically made that impossible. It's completely dictated the course of the game from his perspective, where he's trying to play as many tiles as possible so that he can get a U. It's taken him 6 turns to get there. No other letter does this. No other letter could derail your game to this degree. Okay, he's opted for Dev. This is a really good play as well, right? Like this is a nice idea. He's kept a really flexible combination of letters to pair with his cue. And he's blocked the E hook there and restricted access to the triple as well. Even if the Olefin hook just doesn't get used up, you could still play words down from the N of Olefin. So he's opted to sort of grab the easier of the 2 triple word scores. And you can see Ramekin. So Geoff, again, just like with the quavered rack, hoping against hope that an E is going to come down into a good spot for him. Of course, we see from Dave's rack that's not going to happen. So for Dave, he is ahead by only 2. He really doesn't have a luxury. He doesn't have the luxury of doing a great deal of, defense or board shaping. He's got to continue to put the pedal to the metal here. And I think he's going to play Nawab, which makes a lot of sense to me. Nawab scoring 30 points. That certainly feels like the most he can get at a cost of leaving both of his tees. But I can't imagine he had any other play to the B, and that seems like it's completely called for him here. So, yeah, I just saw it, Jalapik. There is finally, it's a tricky spot. It is a tricky spot. There is a play for the cue here, but it is not easy to see. It's really off the beaten path. And amazingly, he can use his cue here, but he will not be using his U to do so. So if anybody sees this spot, there is a standout play here. And actually the foul, man. So Dave has drawn a U, which is really interesting given the play. So not to spoil it, but Geoff's standout play here, if he sees it, is in the bottom left of the board, the U of Rue. He will actually be able to play Umiak in that spot for 62 points. And the beauty of that is that, oh no, okay, so that he misses it. That's the biggest miss so far. Oddly though, because Dave had a U, he was going to hit that spot really hard. So if you can envision the word Umiak on the board, it would have scored 62, placing the cue into the triple lane. From Geoff's perspective, that would have been tremendous because he kept his U on that play. So he would be putting a cue into the triple lane, holding a U for his future turn. That would have just been perfect. Of course, in this specific situation, Dave had a U and would have played something like quintet or quince or something, or just quint, who knows? Or sync. Any of these options would have been available to Dave. So I don't think this hurts Geoff as much as it could have to miss that play. But there are many, many situations where Geoff would have gravely regretted not playing Umiak there. But again, it is really off the beaten path, not an easy play to see or think of down in that corner of the board. Okay, so you see on the analysis board that Q10 for 30 is Dave's most appealing play. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see Mini go down underneath Q10 almost immediately. Oh, Minim. Yeah, beautiful. So that is an extremely clear option once you see it. With Geoff having the 3 eyes, you've got a way of using 2 of the eyes, both of your M's, and scoring 50 odd points. That's clearly a good option. And wow, look at the tables turning in this game. So Dave with a scowl, as much of a scowl as you'll ever see Dave Wiegand make, as Geoff scoring 50, underlapping Cutin, and Dave's rack has gone sour. While Geoff's, I wouldn't say Geoff's rack is good, but at the very least, he's got some scoring pop that Dave does not have at all. Dave has another one of these racks, just like before on the Roue turn. This is the second rack of the game like this for him, where he's not close to bingoing at all. And he can't score very much either. It looks like he has AUE, this archaic Collins only word. You see that a lot in Collins play, a 3-vowel alternative to EAU, O. And I'm sure he's thinking about playing that under minim, making umu and tai. That's pretty much the best he's likely to do here. In terms of, he's got 6 vowels and only 1 consonant. Ideally, he would like to keep that consonant, as we see his beautiful arm there. Someone's beautiful arm. Yeah, I'm sure it's Dave's. Yeah, okay, there we go. So this game hasn't been in very firm command for Dave. Like, Dave has been 1 step ahead for most of the game, but by no means has it been a done deal for him. He's never been up by much more than, I don't know, 30 or 40. So it's not surprising that Geoff, just by being patient, is able to fight his way back so that he has tempo now. So you can see the game score is roughly even. But Geoff has sort of seized command of the tempo of the game. But, oh, man, look at that. Dave pulls that second blank and another consonant right when he needs it. Hey, Austinho. Atua, that's a great play. That could have been nice. It would have used his 1 consonant. So there would be that drawback to it. So definitely an option there. And hey, Todowski, nice to see you. When game designers rebalance tiles, perhaps the U should be worth 2. Yeah, I think that would be a much needed buff to the U. So all right, we see that Orgy. Looks like Geoff has that ORGY. So Geoff with good scoring tiles, very poor bingoing tiles, but that's, from his perspective, that could be okay as long as Dave also doesn't have good bingo tiles. Of course, as we can see, he does have good bingo tiles. So it seems pretty clear that, well, the interesting thing is, does he have anything? My gut tells me that Dave doesn't have anything from the V, but I'm wondering if he has something from the D. I'm not seeing it yet. So the thing about Orgy, though, is that now that does open up a scoring spot for Dave. He can play Egalite with that extra, the 2 E's, Egalite, however you would say that. But if he does do that, Oh, wow. It's the only bingo. So if he does do that, it's going to expose a huge place where we know before Jeff's draw, we knew he would at least have Haji. Now we know he's going to have Jape in response. Wow. Okay. So this is pretty crazy. So the game situation is such that Dave really pretty much has to bingo and hope that Geoff does not have something heavy hitting to the triple, but he is going to have such a play. So even after Dave bingos, Geoff is going to keep pace here. Oh man, he has japed. Okay, wait a second. He's going to play not even jape down to the triple, but japed parallel to Egalite is still going to play. Yeah, Austin, you're totally right. I'm just seeing that in my mind's eye here. That will be devastating. That's going to score massively in response to this bingo. And that is the only bingo. And I'm pretty sure Dave has to play this here. What could he possibly do to not play this bingo if he's scared of it? Maybe he could play something on the top. Like, what if he plays AIGA and minima? So the idea there would be just hold the blank, try to draw something a little heavier hitting to the V or D on the right side of the board with Dev, and just don't expose that massive. Oh man, if Dave is able to get away from this bingo and realize that he's giving back this giant overlap, if the J is lurking, he could play Aga and Quay and minima at that top part of the board. So down from the A of Nawab. If he does that, it scores 30 something. And would get him off this. I can't say I would do that. I mean, I guess in Dave's shoes, I would probably be sitting and looking at this bingo and saying, man, is there any way I can be patient here? But I don't know if I would, even if I saw that play, I'm not sure I would ever get away from it. I think I'm probably bingoing here and I'm paying the price. But if Dave manages to dodge this bullet here, Matrix style, that will be very, very impressive. It will be a huge difference. So yeah, the disadvantage of Egalite is, I would say, much more the unseen J and just in general the triple. Okay, here it comes. I really don't criticize this. It would be it's total like hindsight and whatever, the omniscience that we have being able to see both racks that makes us say, darn, right? He's found the only bingo. He's played it. You can see Geoff already has japed lined up on his rack. So he's clearly already thinking about this word that he has, and he's going to see very quickly, oh my God, jihadi as well. Okay, so no shortage of possibilities that you can just hammer this spot with. Oh no! Oh, that's a big. I wouldn't say a big mistake, but like that. Well, yeah, it is a big mistake, right? So the reason why this is a big mistake is that he could have gotten 80 points instead of 63 here by playing parallel to Egalite instead of down. The big scary thing about this, though, is, as you can see, heading on Geoff's rack. I don't think that's likely to fit anywhere. But the big reason this is a mistake is just putting that E out in space. You didn't have to do that, right? By playing parallel on top of Egalite, that E, that's such a good bingo tile to play to so many times. Dave is going to hit that E if he draws well. So I don't think he has anything. He almost has the 9-letter word tholeite, which I wonder if he'll have any ability to fish for that. Probably not. But yeah, that's there are definitely situations that Geoff would regret that play, just in case, Dave immediately responds with a bingo to the E. That's not going to happen here. But I just wonder, what will Dave do? I think from his perspective, oh man, okay, so it's 2 in the bag. That's really tough. So I wonder what he can possibly do to give himself chances here. It doesn't seem terrifically likely. I guess, Dave has a good place to score with his H underneath YE, but I don't think that ever really gets him over the finish line here. He's going to have to come up with something clever, I think. So just playing stuff with like hop or hip scores very well, but it empties the bag and basically guarantees that Geoff will have a pretty easy time going out into, barring some kind of crazy draw that gives Dave tough bingos to block. I don't see how Geoff isn't winning pretty much every time after cashing that H spot, I should say. So that calls into question, all right, then what should Dave be doing here to try to create another threat or get more space of some sort on the board? Is there some kind of a one-tile fish that he can make near the R's of Roue and Cruel that opens up that left-hand side of the board for him? What happens if he plays an O there? I'm not seeing great things that he's going to hit there. Maybe he just has to create a threat. Maybe even if he can't hit anything by fishing one tile, he has to make a lane that looks threatening enough to Geoff that maybe he'll. So yeah, there's that H spot. That H spot scores really well. But I don't think that's going to be enough, just given that it empties the bag. The 2 tiles in the bag is the limiting factor here for Dave. There are a lot of nice little 2-tile plays you can make, but maybe he's got I don't know, maybe he can do that and hope to draw the S. Okay, so he's doing this and he's going to draw the S actually. So this is a really crazy situation. So Dave is going to draw the S. Oh man. So now he has retitles as a threat on the lower through the E of Jape. At the very least, he has a bingo that Geoff has to block. And Geoff's going to have to figure out a way to block that while also doing something about the Egalites hook. Yeah, okay. That looks okay. So looks like there are plenty of ways to accomplish that. All you have to do is block retitles at the bottom of the board and do it in a way that blocks off that hook. So I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do that. You could see from the analysis board that there are plenty of options that allow for that. But this is a situation, again, we saw the computer board, right? We saw all of that, but there's like the same play of Jihadi, right? So the players that are playing this game, as good as they are just, they're human beings, right? They're human beings. So if Geoff happens to, for example, mistrack, right? If he mistracks here or if he just doesn't see that Dave has retitles to the E, yeah, as the reinked says, hello, by the way, good morning. He has hinged set up, which looks like a really nice scoring play on top of Egalite. If he plays that, he will lose the game. He has to block retitles, I should say. So lots of really nice looking scoring plays for Geoff are not going to work out for him here. I had thought he had hinged lined up, but also eyeing, AHING, would go down underneath Egalite. Oh no, what's he doing here? Hained. Where is he thinking of playing this? Maybe through the E of Egalite and just saving out plays. But even then, That's not enough points, I don't think. I think Dave will also have overlaps alongside there. Geoff low on time. That's definitely a factor. So the bag is empty. Both players with the 7 tiles that you see, there's nothing left. This is it. It's the end game. And Geoff is needing to block Dave's. It looks like Dave has Vittlers lined up, which I know he knows is not valid. Maybe he's going to try it if he feels like he has to. I highly doubt it. I think he's very likely to know that Vittlers is not good, and he's praying that retitles somehow escapes Geoff's notice, or that Geoff, the time pressure that Geoff is feeling, it doesn't look like Geoff feels particularly rushed. He's taking his time. He's not doing very much math or, okay, there we go. Back to his score sheet he goes. So all we can do is just sweat on Geoff's behalf. And I don't know. I'm not sure I'm rooting against Dave, but I'm always rooting against players to feel horrific pain. And Geoff missing this out bingo would be quite painful. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to hope for here. I guess as a broadcaster, I'm supposed to be impartial and just narrate, shouldn't I? Physics is fun. Hey, physics. Geoff setting up Vittlers to fool the Scrabble gods, pulling the strings on Geoff. Yes. I am not above making, superstitious things, doing superstitious things like that. So, all right. There were a bunch of options here that looked like they would get the job done without much incident. Something like Dinge or Denny. Worried about Geoff having missed tracks, says Mitsurugi. Hello there. Good afternoon. Yeah, I am too. The fact that he was considering Hinged and other stuff on top of Egalite is a bad sign, right? Like this should be a very quick understanding that you have to block off that E, and pretty much anything that gives you an out and 2 that blocks it is going to achieve that. Let's see what he plays. Oh, look at that. So even under pressure, Geoff correctly spots what he has to do here. Dine is his choice. This, I think, is not going to be as good as Denny in the same spot, just because it gives back slightly stronger plays in response. But leaving HAG on the rack is definitely going to work out for Geoff, because he's going to have Hag in a couple of different spots at the base of the board. So Geoff, after all that, we had quite a sweat wondering what he was going to come up with, but that was a winning move for Geoff Thevenot under pressure. Nicely done. So he successfully blocked retitles at the base of the board, taking a narrow lead and setting up not one, but 2 places to play Hag for a pretty good score. Dave is very likely to block those 2 spots. The 2 spots in question being Hag underneath Dine, making EH, and then Hag making Hen on top of Egalite. Oof, man, get the blood pumping here for these guys. Oh, Aga, even better. Oh, man, beautiful. Okay, so that's even better. Yes, nice. So I assume that if Dave, okay, fair point. So if Dave plays down in the lower corner, Aga for 36 is going to be even better. So that's not me. I am just doing the commentary. We have James Curley producing behind the scenes, cutting to the Quapple board. James doing a ton of work to set all of this up and to bear with everything through Twitch being blocked on UT Austin's campus, getting the IT professionals in place. So yeah, good spot to see Aga up there. That looks really, really good. You can see Geoff sees it. So Dave is basically likely to realize, I'm sure Dave's got a lot of time to think about this. Okay, so square. Oh man, so square would be a great play just to score very well, put Dave up by quite a bit. But of course, it leaves Geoff with pretty easy plays to find in the lower right that are just going to retake the lead and give him an easy win. It would be very Dave-like to still spot that play as his best end game. Then again, if I'm Dave here, I'm going to do my best. If I'm in Dave's shoes here, I'm going to do my best to block off the two easy places to play hag and force Geoff to find Aga, just because it's a little trickier, right? To see the quag hook and the minima hook. So even though the best end game is technically square, I don't feel like, given the human beings that are playing, that that's the best chance for Dave to win the game. I would probably play something down low, but even then, I would love to find a play that renders Aga the only winning play. And I'm not sure if it's tilts. I mean, tilts, that's kind of funny. I mean, even then, I think tilts is still going to lose to just hag under the A of Awe. But Geoff sees what he needs to see to secure the win. Aga for 36. Ending the game. Very, very nice. That was a really nicely played game there. Not perfect, but hard to play a perfect game of Scrabble, and a lot of good ideas being showcased by both players there throughout the game. Just to recap, a lot of little nuances that are really nice. Patties, that opening play by Dave, picking a choice that doesn't T-hook. And then Cruel. I really like the play of Cruel by Geoff. Keeping a B instead of a C to pair with his Q and L, so that if he drew an I, he would be able to play Kibla. That's just really, in a vacuum, you would almost certainly always want a C. But in that particular situation, Geoff recognized the benefit of keeping the B. Thanks, James. 5-minute break for our producer, James. Producer and co-director, I might add. As James says, he has to pair the next round, all while providing coverage. Blazers, really like that play for Geoff. Tacking that S on for a bunch of extra points to block off a little bit better the E hook of Olefin. And give himself more chances to draw something into his queue. I mean, Dave obviously playing extremely accurately as well on his end. Really, the inflection point of the game was that Egalite play. So that was the only bingo available for Dave. And man, I don't know how I would ever get away from playing that bingo there. But in fact, things would have worked out massively better for Dave had he forwent the bingo and just played up in that spot where Geoff played Aga. He could have, so Dave could have played AIGA in the same spot, scoring quite well, saving EET blank, and most importantly, not making that huge spot for big scoring tiles to play. So Geoff playing Jape in response. Was so really only two real big mistakes for Geoff in this game. Jape, instead of playing Jape parallel to Egalite, exposing that E and giving Dave sort of threats to potentially bingo. That was avoidable. And then obviously the Umiak play when Geoff played Qua, which again, that's a tough spot, that you got to be in the zone to see spots like that with your Q really off the beaten path. But Ultimately, very impressive endgame played by Geoff under pressure. And he sneaks ahead of Dave Wiegand.